Now, as we are about to look at the saddest admission of defeat from Drake that we have ever seen, and with everything going on right now, the cupcake is really starting to acknowledge how bad things look. Well, before we get any further into this, as the Drake stans are really mad at me and they are getting more annoyed than ever because everything is becoming a lot more than a minor issue. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe because it helps me out a ton and it makes sure that no matter what, the Ice Spice Man's Iceman can't do anything to stop the truth from being heard. And now with that said, well, sit back, relax, make sure to leave a like if you have not already, and get ready and say it with me, which now when it comes to Drake, this is really about to be a good one today. And if you are ready to see how after being the laughing stock of the entire cultural landscape right now, and you know, of course, that's for being a shameless clown bandwagon fan who decided to try to become the Blue Jays mascot and is now facing the ultimate L for it. Well, listen. Be sure to leave a like and subscribe because now with Drake, what it does look like we are starting to see is just a walking crybaby Karen cupcake. We'll finally just admit that hey, maybe this whole grift thing that I've been trying to pull and trying to do, well, it's not working out the best, and now the way we have seen that, and after all of these major and humiliating moments, more than ever is by a response we have gotten to Drake from all of the World Series jokes and just the celebration that has had everybody saying that hey, once again they are running back, not like us, like we are at the pop out again. And now on that very note for the but man, as the Dodgers players came out and said all of these things, well, to just troll Drake after all of the trolling he did to them. Well, he has never just looked like a bigger joke on this grand stage that is just so much bigger than rap. And I guess for all of this, the bot-loving, Karen-driven Ice Spice Man, well, finally is starting to have to accept some sort of defeat. But now ultimately for Drake, and more than we have seen after getting humiliated in the actual back and forth with Kendrick Lamar after the lawsuit and everything there, and even after something like the Super Bowl or the lawsuit loss all the way recently. Well, what is different about what Drake is doing here is that he is not trying to distract people from the absolute mess that he created with a new album or with some other clown action that is just making us wonder how we even let Jimmy Brooks from Degrassi get to anywhere near the center of hip-hop in the first place. And instead, Drake actually stepped up and you know, he did something that I guess does at least give him the title of the Ice Spice Man as well. He directly addressed the World Series loss, the win of the Dodgers, and the hate that he is getting with, well, you know, his favorite way of responding with a lame old post with now a statement and caption that reads this: "Congrats to the Jays for a dream season and a legendary World Series fight. Got so sticky I had to take a break from steak and get some air. ... And now what's important here? And if you are tired of all of the Drake grifts and games, just get ready because this is about to be an annoying one. Well, what Drake did here was now take a little video of him hanging out within the Rogers Center. And you know, of course, he is sitting in his little seat because, you know, he will only ever be a fan here and he will never actually take that stage. And well, what Drake ultimately did was make another video for Steak where he is using and trying to push their lame services well on his impressionable fan base, which you know, that's a whole other conversation, so we're not even going to get into that yet. And well, what Drake is doing is he switches from playing the lame games on Steak and then opens up something where he has control of the Rogers Center dome and he pretty much presses a button and then all of a sudden the dome starts to open. And I just want to be very clear about this because some people could not tell that this is fake. But yeah, this is fake. And obviously for so many reasons. 1. Drake can't literally control something that an entire baseball game and one of the biggest sporting events in the world, well, just as under control. And I don't think the Drake stans realize that because some of them were actually commenting and hyping this up like this was a big move and it shows how much control and fame he really has in his city. But regardless of that, aside from the Drake stans not understanding physics, logistics, and I guess just reality, because how could you even think that something like this could actually go down from Drake's little button on his phone? Well, what's important here and what it seems like Drake is doing aside from showing his little music button and also showing that he was listening to music or playing music right before playing Steak, I guess, well, is that when Drake goes to control this thing and turn on the dome and let it open up because, you know, Drake is trying to deceive people to think he has this sort of influence and power. Well, what Drake used to press it is a red button. And now with this, you know, for Drake, it's almost admirable how somebody manages to keep this grip going of this idea which absolutely means nothing. And we know there is absolutely nothing behind it anymore in the red button. And he just keeps binging his fans and giving them small Easter eggs like this to actually believe that there is something bigger he has going on, or that he is going to do something crazy and everybody is going to be shocked, and you know that's kind of what he is trying to do or allude to, hey. But no, seriously, for a second when we look at Drake doing this and we even see how, you know, he kind of acknowledged the Blue Jays' loss, but it ultimately ended up being for one of the mandated things he has to do for stake because, you know, this is the only brand that respects Drake because clearly Nike or his own label don't anymore, as they have just humiliated him more in this time. And you know, stake being the most reputable thing that's next to Drake's name, that's also speaking volumes. But now when you realize that Drake had to do this because he has pretty much put himself in a position where no matter what, and I guess no matter what paperwork that he is being handed out, well, he's got to back his buddy Aiden Ross and his buddy Eddie, and he's got to continue to do garbage like this. And you know, I'm sure as Drake really does love some of the garbage stuff that he is pushing onto the fans he so-called cares about. And you know, I'm sure Drake is benefiting from all of this because he is actually getting people to use these garbage services and play these garbage games, which then, you know, is just making him more valuable to stake as a whole. Well, I mean, you know why Drake did this, which once again is just showing why he pretty much has done anything at this point in his career and pretty much for a longer time than all of this fall-off has been visible, which is that ultimately Drake is just a grifter. And to make his pockets a little deeper and to make those numbers a little more inflated, he will compromise on any of his morals or just any sort of a decent practice because that's who he is and that's really what he stands for. But now when you realize all of this and realize the moment we are in where Drake is being clowned by everybody for not just being in the whole LA vs Toronto thing like I talked about in the last video, and you know there was always going to be some sort of a play mirror and parallel to the biggest rap beef of all time between Kendrick and Drake because it was just too perfect of a thing to not talk about. But ultimately now after Drake was heckling the Dodgers, you know, he was pretty much saying that the Blue Jays were going to win. He arrogantly predicted that they were going to finish the series earlier than they ever even got close to. And you know, he was taunting some of the best athletes we have in the entire world right now. Well, after doing all of this and just putting the magnifying glass closer and closer to him and just having his words be held up more and more to not just everybody's eyes, but then everybody's jokes when it failed. Well, Drake does understand right now that he is addressing pretty directly for his lame and pathetic standards. Well, all of these issues in the most upfront way that we have seen him pretty much do ever. And what really does stick out to me here is that, you know, while if Drake actually admitted that the Blue Jays just lost and, you know, maybe even said a congratulations to LA, there would be some sort of respect drawn between the line of everything we are seeing right now. And you know, maybe people wouldn't be making fun of him as much or people wouldn't be as hard on him because they would finally see that, hey, maybe this guy just has a 0.5% of just decency or respect for the game and competition on any level. But of course, this is the Ice Spice Man. And what do we even expect? Because, you know, to see Drake just bait this whole red button gimmick in almost the big 2026. I mean, to call this baffling or blasphemous would be an understatement because you know with Drake almost acting like he lost and almost really embracing the defeat that he has for once, and then you know he could move on and focus on better things. Well, when you really sit here and realize the whole red button grift and even the whole thing with the Rogers Center Dome, which almost does seem like some sort of a diss to not just everything going on with the World Series, but directly to Kendrick Lamar as he is saying that, you know, while Kendrick may have played in the Rogers Center and had his little moment here, Drake still does control and has like the keys to the building in a way you could look at it from his perspective. Well, overall with Drake really editing fake things of him in the Rogers Center, sitting in there as a fan with a red button to now try and send some sort of a weird message to Kendrick Lamar and, you know, just bring this thing full circle. I mean, you got to get out of hip-hop. Like, when is going to be the point when Drake is just not going to even be allowed to put the rap or hip-hop tags on his albums and on his new music releases anymore? It's just with these being the ways that you are antagonizing your opponent still. And again, you are just holding on to delusions so much that you can't even actually say that your baseball team where it's like objective. A score was given and a trophy was handed out and you still can't accept defeat. This is something that is just so wrong and I don't even know how to contextualize it into words. And if you don't think that Drake was trying to send Kendrick Lamar a message here or at the very least troll him in his own weird way, well, as we did hear that Kendrick Lamar does be checking the story sometimes and he sees a lot of the ridiculous stuff that these rappers are doing. To not think that Drake heard that same news that we did and then went extra hard on this whole little bit that he made with Stake to, just send a few messages out to all of the rivals and people who have proven that they have more love in the city that he is from than he does. Well, again, you just wouldn't be looking at the same Drake that we have seen for the past 2 years almost. And just to really see this and see Drake go as far as he did, I mean, Karen, you got to give it up. You got to just finally say, hey, I lost in some sort of way because, when I heard a lot of the Drake stans saying this and a lot of these weird people who were just haters of Kendrick Lamar and who disdain his authenticity and success so much, which was just this narrative at this whole thing of trying to give Drake an L for this and trying to talk about him in this moment, it's just so corny and they are tired of it. Well, again, you understand that in order for people to talk about Drake and for him to be brought up, Drake has to do things that require people to talk about it, and he has to pretty much do something that has been spanning since May of 2024 that has consistently involved him never taking accountability, never admitting that he lost, never showing any sort of growth or just acceptance of the reality of everything we have seen. And then again, he is creating in a fantasy world and he is having writers just scribble in a notebook and create these lives that never just existed from him, but never just existed in any reality and realm possible. And ultimately has just brought us to this point where Drake is now sitting in the stands as a fan. And yet he is trying to act as a winner, a king, and a leader who still has some sort of a competitive edge, whether it's in his city, whether it's in rap, or whether it's in a back and forth in general with Kendrick Lamar or any of the rivals and people who are willing to challenge him or who are calling him out. And as I sit back here and when I first saw this, I got a little excited because I thought Drake actually was finally going to admit defeat. And that would just be a massive and honestly genre-shifting moment for not just hip-hop in of itself, but really a just shifting moment for culture as a whole because it would show on some level, even if it took him this long, that Drake is finally starting to just actually be in touch with himself. I mean, there's just no other way to put it. But we are at a point where if we really are being real, nothing is going to happen from Drake from this very moment on out that is ever going to make us look back at his legacy, reputation, and career better than the way we see it now, which already in terms of what we have seen in the downfall of course has been tainted, tarnished, and destroyed so much. And it's only going to get much worse from here because to just not show any sort of accountability on any levels and to just continue to really show and now define your entire identity and brand on being this defiant, clueless loser who doesn't ever want to accept even half of reality, and who has now built their entire network in terms of who they are friends with and who they work with on people who are just like him and who continue to just unravel themselves in more and more delusion, and then to see the product of it itself, which from the music to the games to the gimmicks like this, every single thing is reflective of that very principle. Well, overall, when we talk about people's actions and how they may change or affect their legacies over time and maybe even how somebody could fall off, but maybe they can have a comeback or anything like that. Well, while anything has been possible and in rap, we've seen people on the top reach rock bottom and get right back to the top. And with the space we are at in the genre right now, there really is a search for a number 2 that I think besides Kendrick sitting at 1, anybody else can pretty much get to that silver medal spot. Well, with that, I would just say with every single person who possibly could turn their fall off into another comeback, Drake will never and he is never going to get close to that because to just now identify and unravel his brand within these gross principles and he has just made it very clear that he is never going to change. Drake's only going to make more moves that are going to continue to sever every single thing that was ever liked, respected, and appreciated about him in musical and rap-related spaces, just the more we continue to see him. And so with this moment where Drake could have finally admitted and even done it in a way where he didn't have to face the full consequences of it that he and the guys that he represents and that he bandwagons for, well, they lost to LA and inherently Kendrick Lamar. Well, I guess everything here made him so delusional one more time that he can't. And as Drake is really in shambles right now, it's going to be interesting to see how the KS Karen crash out moves from here. But what I will say and what I am confident in is that no matter how it moves, it's only going to get a lot worse. And so, yeah, that's all I got today. I mean, I just can't believe that we saw Drake almost admit defeat. It honestly almost did make me a little excited because that would have been a huge moment where he would have shown that again he would have had half of a point or just half of an idea or a concept of reality. But we didn't see that, and Drake is just going to continue being the biggest loser of all time. Which now, on that very note, if you made it to this point in the video, you are one of the biggest winners of all time. And I just want to say thank you so much for all of the support. Well, listen, it really does mean a lot to me. And make sure to leave a like if you have not already. And listen, I hope you have a great rest of your day. And now, if you want to see how right before this, well, Drake got accused of having 37 billion fake Spotify streams. And with this, really, everything around Drake is falling apart because so much more than we could have ever expected really may be fake. Well, you're not going to want to miss this one. So, check out the suggested video.